Welcome to the Orange Couch Talks, a deeper dive from our leaders into our recent teachings.
Well, guys, welcome back to the Orange Couch Talks. This is episode 11, and the gang's all back together again. It's been a little while since all of us have been able to sit down and talk on the Orange Couch. So we're all back here. This past weekend, Pastor Jackie and Pastor Andrew taught wonderful messages. Andrew was also at Levine, so that was pretty cool.
I could be in multiple places.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty shifty.
Very fast. It was impressive. It was very impressive. But all the topic that you guys talked through and everything, it was a lot on judgment. And 2020 definitely has been a season that we've had a lot of opinions. Everybody's had a lot of opinions about a lot of things that we probably never really had opinions on before. And it's led to some challenges with judgment. I mean, I remember whenever I actually flew out here to interview, we came out, we checked out Cross Church, and Cross Church was very generous, gave us this bag of goodies. And one of the things in the bag...
No judgment there.
No. It was wonderful, obviously. We're here now, but one of the things in this goodie bag we were given was this like spicy Hatch chili popcorn. It was delicious. Me and Cody were flying back home in the airport. She went to the bathroom or something. I was sitting there and I was hungry. So I busted open the spicy bag of popcorn and started eating it in the airport. COVID had already started. People were concerned at that point. And I didn't have anything to drink. I didn't think that through because I started eating it and it was spicy. I started coughing. I didn't have anything to wash it down. I coughed more and more. And I had the dirtiest looks I think I've ever received in my life while I was in the airport. And it was just from popcorn. But it's this whole new world, this whole new climate of judgment that we're dealing with. How are we supposed to respond? How are we supposed to live in that sort of environment?
It's everywhere. I was flying through Hong Kong on our way to Myanmar, to our church plant there, Cross Church Myanmar. And I take this little thing for blood pressure medicine that one of the side effects, it causes sort of a dry cough just continuously. So I'm always coughing. That's just me. And flying through Hong Kong with the early stages of the pandemic was being addressed then at the beginning of the year there. And I had these coughing fits on the airplane. And you're like, you would have thought, man, I'd done something else on the airplane, you passed gas or whatever. That's now less offensive than coughing on the plane. And you're right, man, there's so many polarizing opinions about this year, race issues, police brutality, or fund the police or defund the police, who you're voting for, who you're not voting for, who won the election, who didn't really win the election.
Wearing a mask,
not wearing a mask. I mean, coming to your house probably for Christmas dinner is the crazy uncle that never wears a mask and thinks everybody's communists that do, and is the crazy aunt that thinks that you should wear a mask when you're alone in the shower. And so it's like those are the extremes that we all deal with.
And even going to Christmas right now, I mean, I have family members that are like, why would you go and see another family member and put them in danger?
Yeah,
and then other family members that are mad that you're not coming.
Yeah.
So there's like no winning.
Yeah.
So in the midst of all this, there's so many polarizing opinions, even sometimes within the same person, there's all these polarizing. What kind of challenges are faced by leaders in this season?
I think it's that you're gonna make somebody mad. And that's what I think we've talked a lot about, is like, we can try to take some middle ground, and we've tried to, and say like, hey, we're gonna go this direction, but know that someone, no matter what decision we make, isn't going to be happy about it. And if you want to make it, leaders don't make everybody happy. If you want to make everybody happy, go sell ice cream, right? And especially in 2020, it's whatever decision, it's going to ruffle some feathers either way.
I totally agree. This is a no-win zone for leaders. I mean, traditionally in church, we're doing stuff that you have pretty much universal agreement on. Let's tell people about Jesus. Okay, we're all for that. Let's sing songs. Okay, we're all for that. Let's build a new building. Pretty much you get universal agreement for all of those big initiatives that the church has done for, generations and since Jesus departed into heaven. And now, even inside the church, and I find this sad, frustrating, challenging. Even inside the church, you have these like competing opinions that we almost have elevated these issues above the issues of the gospel and the issues of the mission and the vision of the church. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to wear a mask, or I want everybody to wear a mask, or I voted for this person and this person voted, this elder or this person voted for somebody that I don't think, Jesus would vote for, and they're the devil, the person you voted for. And it's just, wow, very polarizing. And we spoke at our Surprise Campus meeting yesterday about, I think, because you're not going to make everybody happy, just make yourself happy, No, seriously.
I think that's what Jesus said.
We spent a long time discussing that.
Yeah. No, because you're not going to make everybody happy, I think the one thing that you can do for everyone as a leader is to be consistent. And I may consistently make you unhappy right now, and I'm sorry for that. I truly am, because pastors are. We love people. That's why you get into ministry, because of the people. That's why you get out of the ministry, because of the people too. But that's why you get in ministry, because you have a passion and a concern for people. And so it's always frustrating on any level when you find out people aren't happy with you or your decision, because that's not the goal, right? But because of the spirit of judgment that just has shrouded this year, and all of the differing opinions, and we're all dealing with stuff, giving grace to the people that are frustrated. We're all dealing with stuff that we've never dealt with before. We as leaders haven't dealt with this. We may be making mistakes, but they're honest mistakes, because we just don't know. I mean, just think about the CDC, for example. The changes in rules and guidelines since the beginning of the coronavirus. I don't think it's because they're trying to secretly, sabotage my life. Maybe. I don't believe that to be true, though. I think it's because they just didn't know a lot about a brand new virus. In February. They know maybe more now, and maybe they're going to know more a year from now, in all likelihood. So there's an evolution of thought that goes on. And I think that the best thing we can do as leaders is to be consistent. I think the best thing that we can do as church members or in any entity is to be gracefully supportive right now of those leaders. I read just recently the superintendent for Paradise Valley school system resigned and retired. He just said, I'm done with it, because he was getting so much hate mail about decisions they were making to meet or not meet, virtual school or non-virtual school. And that's a decision, no matter what he decided, think about this, there were going to be some parents that are going to be upset with him.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he didn't get into education to hurt kids' education. I'm sure that he got into education to teach kids. And yet the frustrating thing is, and he's like, I'm just going to be done, because I can't deal with this. And I don't think that's the right necessary response for leaders right now, but it is challenging, and it is a culture of judgment that we live in. And so Jesus speaks to that, like with a megaphone in Matthew 7.
I think you talked about how quick we are to rush to judgment in 2020. And I think one of the things we need to step back and realize, and we just need to reinforce, keep ourselves accountable, keep our church family and our culture, is right now, I don't know if we've ever seen it, is people are defining other people by what they support at that time, or a choice they make, or you like a tweet. Like I've never seen on Twitter, but now it's famous people say, like tweets don't mean endorsements, or a retweet doesn't mean endorsement, or follow doesn't mean, like, just because I like this one tweet doesn't mean I agree with every single thing a person says.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to these camps like, oh, you support that candidate? I know who you are. You're dead to me, or this. Or, oh, you have this belief on mass or no mass? Okay, I know everything about you and I'm writing you off. It's like we've stopped getting to know the people and have polarized these issues so much that it's like there's no middle ground with a lot. And we got to think about, hey, there's a person behind that thought.
And social media is made that easier for people. I mean, it's a little harder to sit down and say, I think you're a jerk to your face. It's a lot easier to tweet it or to say it on Facebook.
Or tweet a professional athlete that you're terrible at your job, you should get fired.
Yeah, it's a
They may
lot.
weigh 300 pounds, but you know.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do that when you're socially distanced from them. But I think that's just that's the world that we live in, and I think that we get to, as leaders, lead through this with confidence and with clarity and with consistency, and that's all we can do. I mean, we can't do anything else.
I think consistency is incredibly wise. Another thing that you said yesterday in our meeting that I think was a great guiding principle is for all leaders as we try and come through this is that absolutely we're going to make decisions that some people aren't going to like, but it's important to show that we care and that we've considered all viewpoints. And it's very easy to be dismissive. Okay, this is going to be what works for most people, and then disregard the people that are left out. But to try and challenge ourselves to innovate and be creative, to say, all right, here's how we can meet the most needs here, but here's how we can still defer and still create opportunities and options in ways that we've never considered before, but to put the work in to say, all right, here's how we can try and increase the impact that we have.
For those that are watching right now on Thursday, just know we made a decision kind of based on that principle of preference. It was your idea that you brought to the table. So if you don't like it, it's the new guy.
That's to say.
So
if you do
I
like
have
it, you're welcome. If not,
responsibility. I'm perfectly willing to give him the credit as well as whatever else comes the way. But I get emails pretty regularly about, hey, we want to come back to church, but we don't feel like people are wearing masks enough. Then I get comments regularly, Pastor, why do we have to feel like we need to wear a mask? That's the world that we live in. Just so you know, your opinion is not the only opinion out there. Whatever side of the fence that you're on, there's not only one side of that fence, right? And so in an effort to care for both sides, your idea, again, it was TC's idea.
TC at crosschurchcares.com.
Send your concerns to him. But why don't we create a section that is mandatory mask? I thought that was brilliant, TC, that you came up with that idea. I endorse it until I don't. And but we're going to create some space for people that have more underlying concerns about their health issues than others. Those are understandable, they're legitimate, and so creating a space for people that feel like masks need to be worn all the time at church, let's create something for them. So that's what you're talking about when you're like, let's consider both sides and let's try to care for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, in a climate, a environment, a season where judgment and polarization is so high, it's not only challenging for leaders to lead, but there's consequences to live a lifestyle of judgment. What kind of stuff, what's the symptoms of living a judgment lifestyle?
I think part of it is not ever being able to live in the moment. I think the more judgy you get, the more overly critical you get. And you talked about this, there's a fine line between concern and just being a jerk. And sometimes we can get so critical, then we become more critical, and it's like this snowball effect. You see that speck in every brother's eye now instead of just the few concerned, and it almost becomes just rules your heart going down that road rather than kind of backing up and seeing the people. And I think sometimes in a workplace or even a job, if you make judgments about, even I thought about when I was in Target in the corporate world, you can make early judgments about a coworker or someone who works for you, and you're like, okay, that's going to be the prevailing thought in my head. So if this person's messed up, I'm always going to think, okay, that's it, and this is the idea I have about Joe Schmo. Instead of okay, am I really giving a fair shake here? Am I truly giving them a chance? And understanding what led to that one time of being there, so that we don't always have that preconception in mind.
Yeah, you think of consequences. I mean, Jesus lays that out all the way through the Sermon on the Mount for every negative emotion or action that we have, there are consequences, whether it be anger or worry or prideful, arrogant giving, or in this case, judgment. And amazingly, the recipient of those consequences is always the person that's harboring the negative opinion or the negative emotion. For this case, judging. Judge not that you be not judged, for what measure you meet it shall be measured to you again. And that's like whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. Mm-hmm. And I told your group, because I preached at the Phoenix campus this past weekend, that the older I've gotten, and you don't always get better when you get older, right? I mean, it's possible to get more cranky, more opinionated. Bitterness dries the bones, Proverbs says, and so it's possible to just become a bitter, cranky old man. But one of the things that's happened in me in my life is the older I've gotten, the more forgiving I've become, and the more forbearing I've become. Now you say, well, that's wonderful. That's a great quality. You're so spiritual for that. No, I'm not spiritual. It's really not spiritual at all. It's just that I've realized how much more faults I have and how much more grace I'm going to need. So I'm doing it very selfishly because I know I need to give Andrew grace and you grace and everybody else grace, because I know I'm going to need it back from you one day. And that is exactly what the Bible teaches here, is that I need to give grace and forgiveness and long suffering to people because I need it in return. It's the principle of the harvest. Whatsoever you sow, you shall also reap. I know we have Farmer Andrew here because we're filming this in Phoenix, and just outside the doors here is your farm, your garden. You're building a Phoenix garden.
Let's push back a little bit.
We probably should give you. I have some real boots on. We should probably trade.
These are more hipster boots. I'm going to try to start a trend called hipster farming.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. But it's the. Probably not. But anyways, the law of the harvest is that you always reap what you sow.
Yeah.
You can't sow tomatoes seeds and reap apples. You can't sow judgment and reap forgiveness. You always reap after you sow. I mean, you can't get it until you put it in the ground, and then you always reap more than you sow. And so that's the really scary thing. If you sow a little judgment, you're going to reap a lot of judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, there's lots of consequences.
And it's living filled with judgment, such a fragile existence too. You're wanting everybody to see life your way and see you the way you want. And as soon as that doesn't happen, there's a crack, there's a breach, there's a pain, and everyone sees life differently. That God's created these differences is a fantastic, wonderful thing to enhance life. So whenever we want everything to be like us, it only hurts us to not embrace the variety, the diversity.
Definitely.
And I think just the illustration, we talked about, I was in Surprise, so we talked about it a little bit this week. And Levine. And but just the illustration Jesus uses of having a plank in your eye. Like, if I had a plank in my eye right now, I couldn't be this close to Jackie, and I would be farther apart from you. So it kills our relationships because it pushes us farther apart. Mm-hmm. So the more we have that judgment, it just is going to drive a wedge and push us apart and damage the relationships we have with those around us.
So judgment creates distance. Judgment creates fragility. If that is that a word? Is that a word?
Yeah,
it is if you say so.
There's a book called, there is, Fragility.
Okay, hey, so distance, fragility, I mean, it causes consequence in life. There's a lot of pains that come along with judgment, and I think we, as a society, as around the globe, are experiencing those pains right now. So with all that, what's the cure?
Well, I think it's the last verse in the text we studied. It's, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And it's not just don't do unto others. It's not a passive statement. It's an active statement that I need to do for you what I want you to do for me. And so when I do nice stuff for you, it's getting selfish. I just want you to do it back for me. No, I think there's a reciprocal nature to life. That is what you sow, what you reap, what you judge. You get judged back. But what you do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. I mean, a pretty smart guy said that. It's hard to,
Well, and even
make that better.
okay, even
But he's going to.
well, I'll say
the
Jesus.
platinum rule.
Jesus talks, which I don't think is kind of crazy. But I think Jesus even talked about, like, you know, we think of the sacrifice, him coming here in Christmas, is Jesus died for us not so that we would keep sinning, not so that we would keep disobeying him, not so that we would keep just running away from him, but he died for us and forgave us for our sins so that we would get closer to God. So it's not like he was doing that to expect, but the outflow of what Jesus has done for us is we should worship and love God all the more. And the only way we can truly, I think, treat others how we want to be treated, and that's why it's a cool thing to say the golden rule, but without God, it's just a rule that we don't keep.
Yeah.
And it is only through the power of Christ transforming, changing us. That's why I love right before that Jesus talks about asking and seeking the Father's will, because it's only by us praying to be transformed that we can truly consider others' needs and love them the way we should.
Yeah, I mean, the friction and the conflict of disagreement is such a healthy process. And part of doing unto others the way that I want done unto me is I want for people to let me know when I'm going in a direction that is going to cause me harm. And that's one of the tensions of our society now is everybody should be in agreement about all things, and that leads to a collective harm. But Jesus is saying here, like, hey, treat others the way you want to be treated, love people, challenge people, but the judgment.
But do it in a way that restores,
Absolutely.
not the way that condemns. I mean, if I saw a speck in your eye, you'd probably feel it. And you know, if you don't have a mirror, somebody might come along and say, "Man, let me get that out of your eye. Let me help you."
He's about to touch her
He's
eyeball.
getting really close to my eye.
Jesus is not saying that we shouldn't help a brother get a speck out of his eye.
Absolutely.
He's just saying that we need to look into our own lives first, but also we don't need to do it in a way that's condemning. We need to do it in a way that's restoring.
Absolutely. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities that every single one of us has to restore and love on other people. And just like you said, Jackie, we're going to need it quite a bit ourselves. So hopefully we've given you some great tools and directions and how to face some of these challenging moments in our world. But we're so glad that you jumped on with us today for the Orange Couch Talks. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe, and don't forget to go out and make Jesus known.